weren't exactly surprised that there was going to be slowing. Certainly, you see the number of cases rising. Governments are starting, well, local governments and state and local governments are implementing new restrictions on mobility and activity. So it's not terribly surprising that we saw a slowing in the number of payroll gains. Indeed, when you look at the details, you kind of see some of the trends that are going on there. Certainly, retail was down. Meantime, and certainly that reflects the challenges that brick and mortar stores are experiencing. Meanwhile, transportation and warehousing, lots of jobs growth there, certainly reflecting the increase in online spending. And so the key thing is, well, what happens towards the end of the year, December, when we see these fiscal cliffs and households losing access to unemployment benefits, as well as forbearances on paying mortgages and rent and student loans. And so I think any amount, and I'm not in a position to say how much, but any amount will be beneficial to supporting businesses and households, certainly as governments are keeping tabs on mobility.
You raised the trend of strong job growth in transportation and warehousing, some of the strength in e-commerce, for instance. I wonder if you think that that is a secular shift in the hiring economy, or if you think some of those trends, when we look back several months from now, will have been seasonal as these companies just tried to react to this unprecedented surge in demand based on where we are, but they really don't need those people when the economy starts to recover.
Well, I mean, certainly you do have some seasonal hiring around the holidays. That's not unusual. But in terms of the trends in retail that we're seeing, these were around even before the pandemic. If anything, the pandemic has accelerated these trends towards e-commerce, streaming, experiences that are virtual over actually physically going to a mall or a store to buy goods. And but certainly services are still suffering. We saw that in the labor market data today. But I would say that there's still quite a bit of upside in terms of manufacturing and construction. We saw job gains in those areas, and certainly the PMIs and the housing starts and sales data portended those things happening. So if anything, those are kind of the new trends in construction and manufacturing, but certainly not in retail. And I think that there's definitely going to be stickiness in terms of these trends, even beyond the pandemic.
With that in mind, Dana, even when the vaccine is effectively rolled out, is there a risk that unemployment doesn't rebound as quickly as everyone's hoping? Even if overall economic activity does get a significant boost from the vaccine, might some of the changes in employment be permanent?
Indeed. I mean, well, first of all, we've seen pretty significant declines in the unemployment rate. It's only in the recent months that we've seen a slowing in the pace. We still expect that the unemployment rate's going to fall over time, and certainly as the vaccine becomes widely available to most people. However, you are going to have some trends that are just going to be permanent. Indeed, we had a lot of people who retired early amid the pandemic. They're not going to jump back into work once the pandemic is over. They're retired. And certainly we have some very negative trends among women and also people with lower skills and also people with less education, where many of those people are falling out of the labor market, and it may be more difficult for them to re-enter once the pandemic is over. So we do anticipate some hysteresis and some labor market scarring that's going to happen. But we are optimistic that certainly once there are a number of vaccines that the millions of people in the U.S. can get their hands on, that we will see a return to activity, and that services consumption and activity will pick up again, and we will see that followed by improvement in the labor market.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.